We live in a world eager for titles, labels, and applause. The moment you meet someone new, the question comes quickly, "So, what do you do?" But I would suggest to you that the soul is never defined by its occupation, nor the heart by its resume. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is the discipline of holding back what our pride so quickly longs to reveal. To remain silent when the temptation arises to announce one's achievements or parade one's talents is not weakness, but strength of the highest order. For vanity, like a shadow, grows larger the more attention it receives, and when the soul indulges in boasting, even in subtle forms, it slowly loses the purity that gives its actions true power. To guard oneself from vanity requires a kind of inner watchfulness, and silence is the shield by which the heart is defended. We live in an age where self-expression is worshipped and self-promotion is considered a virtue. Every platform demands that we announce who we are, what we do, and why we matter. Yet the loudness of such a culture does not make it wise. When we constantly speak of ourselves, our work, and our worth, we begin to believe that recognition is the measure of value. But recognition is fleeting, dependent on the applause of others, and easily stripped away. Silence, on the other hand, keeps the soul rooted in a deeper reality. It reminds us that worth is not conferred by the crowd, but by the substance of our being and the integrity of our actions. Silence is not only a guard, but also a teacher. When we resist the impulse to tell others what we have done or what we intend to do, we learn humility. Humility is not the denial of one's gifts, but the refusal to make them an idol. In silence, the soul discovers the difference between doing good for its own sake and doing good for the sake of being seen. The quiet worker who labors without announcement builds something stronger than reputation. He builds character. Vanity may bring admiration for a moment, but humility wins trust for a lifetime. There is also a sacredness in hiddenness. The greatest treasures of the earth, gold, oil, precious stones, are buried deep, unseen to the eye until diligently sought. So it is with the human spirit. That which is hidden often carries the most weight. A soul that lives in silence, away from the clamor of self-advertisement, becomes like a wellspring of fresh water, clean and undisturbed, while the soul that shouts its every deed becomes shallow, soon muddy with self-importance. Silence preserves the purity of our motives, ensuring that our actions are born from conviction rather than from the hunger for attention. Moreover, silence creates a space where God Himself can speak. When the voice of vanity is hushed, when the need to broadcast is laid aside, the heart grows more attuned to whispers of guidance and wisdom. A noisy soul cannot hear the subtleties of truth, for it is too preoccupied with its own echo. But a silent soul, restrained from the vanity of self-declaration, is free to listen, to discern, and to be shaped by something greater than pride. In this way, silence does not merely guard against vanity. It opens the door to transformation. In the end, silence is not an emptiness, but a fullness. It is the space where our deeds speak louder than our words, where our work proves itself without the crutch of constant explanation, and where our souls remain unpolluted by the endless need for recognition. To practice silence is to trust that truth will eventually reveal itself, that light cannot be hidden forever, and that value, real value, never depends on how loudly it is announced. Silence guards the soul from vanity because it reminds us of this timeless truth. We are not what we say we are, but what we quietly, faithfully, and humbly become. True worth has never been measured by the loudness of one's words, but by the quiet strength of one's deeds. Announcements may impress for a fleeting moment, but actions leave an imprint that endures. The world has always been full of voices declaring greatness, yet history remembers not those who boasted, but those whose lives bore fruit. A promise may inspire, a speech may stir, but it is only action consistent, sincere, and humble. That reveals the truth of a person's character. To live as though action alone is the proof of worth is to align oneself with reality, for reality cannot be deceived by empty words. When we announce ourselves, when we rush to tell others of our accomplishments, we seek validation in echoes rather than substance. Words may win admiration for a time, but if they are not matched with reality, they soon collapse. Like a building with no foundation, announcements built on vanity cannot stand. But action is different. It requires effort, discipline, sacrifice, and perseverance. It cannot be faked for long. True worth is like a tree. Announcements are the leaves that may dazzle for a season, but action is the root, hidden yet strong, which nourishes and sustains. Without roots, the leaves wither, no matter how bright they once appeared. There is also a humility in action that announcements rarely carry. To act is to pour oneself into the task without demanding attention. It is to allow the work to speak on your behalf. The most trustworthy people are not those who constantly proclaim their values, but those who live them. One who claims honesty with words may still deceive, but one who practices honesty in daily choices makes the truth unmistakable. Words can be manipulated to paint a false image. Actions reveal what no speech can disguise. A kind act, a sacrifice made in secret, or a duty fulfilled faithfully without applause. These are the proofs of worth that no announcement can rival. Consider how the greatest figures of history are remembered. Their legacies were not forged by their speeches about themselves, but by the weight of their contributions. The builders of cathedrals, the inventors of cures, the reformers who risked their lives for justice, all of them are honored not because they declared their greatness, but because they acted with courage and integrity. Their worth was revealed by what they accomplished and endured, not by how they described themselves. The loud voices of their age have faded, but the quiet strength of their deeds still shapes the world. On a more personal level, each of us faces the temptation to speak more than we do. It is easier to talk of what we plan than to discipline ourselves to complete it. Words give the illusion of progress without requiring the sacrifice. But true worth is never in intentions spoken aloud. It is in follow-through, in the unseen effort that turns ideas into reality. A person may announce their vision 100 times, but one moment of genuine achievement outweighs them all. Ultimately, true worth is tested in silence, when there is no audience to applaud, no recognition to be gained. It is in those hidden choices, those quiet sacrifices, that a person reveals who they truly are. Announcements may feed pride, but they cannot sustain the soul. Action, however, has the power to build a life of integrity, a legacy that endures, and a strength that no vanity can corrupt. For in the end, it is not what we declare about ourselves that defines us, but what we actually do when no one is watching. That is where worth is proven, and that is where truth resides. Hidden roots are the unseen strength of every mighty tree. They do not draw attention to themselves, nor do they ask for recognition, yet without them, no tree could stand. Storms may rage, winds may howl, and seasons may change, but the tree endures because its roots, though invisible, are deep and strong. In the same way, the hidden aspects of our character, our discipline, faith, perseverance, and humility nourish the life we live outwardly. What is not seen often matters more than what is displayed, for the unseen sustains the seen. In life, there is a temptation to focus on appearances, to decorate the branches and polish the leaves while ignoring the roots. We want others to admire what can be observed, forgetting that what is hidden determines whether the outward beauty will last. A person may appear successful, intelligent, or powerful for a time, but if they lack the hidden roots of integrity, patience, and moral strength, their life cannot endure the inevitable trials. When storms come and they always do, shallow roots are exposed. Only those whose strength lies beneath the surface, quietly nourished in places no one sees, can stand firm. The hidden roots of the soul are formed in silence, in disciplines practiced when no audience is present. These are the moments when a person chooses honesty even when lying would be easier, chooses perseverance when quitting would bring relief, chooses kindness when bitterness would feel justified. Such choices do not make headlines, but they shape the hidden structure of character. And when the time of testing comes, the person who has cultivated these unseen strengths stands unshaken, not because of what they show outwardly, but because of what has been built inwardly. Consider the tree in winter. Its branches are bare, its beauty gone, and to the casual observer it may seem lifeless. Yet below the frozen ground, the roots are alive, holding firm, waiting patiently for spring. In the same way, our hidden roots sustain us in seasons of loss, failure, or silence. When outward success is stripped away, when recognition is absent, it is the hidden depth of faith, discipline, and resilience that allows us to endure. Many falter in such seasons because they built their worth only in what others could see, but those who invested in the hidden life discover a strength that cannot be destroyed. There is also a humility in hidden roots. They do their work without demanding praise. No one applauds a root for drawing water or anchoring a tree, yet without it the tree is nothing. In our lives, the greatest contributions are often unseen. The quiet dedication of a parent, the silent prayers of a believer, the daily labors of someone who chooses to do what is right without recognition. These hidden acts nourish the visible good that others admire. True greatness is never in the showy display, but in the depth that sustains it. In a world obsessed with appearances, to value hidden roots is an act of wisdom. It is to understand that strength does not come from how tall we stand, but from how deep we grow. The strongest trees are not those with the widest branches, but those with roots that have gone down into the unseen soil, drawing life from places that eyes cannot behold. So it is with the soul. If we invest in the hidden, if we feed our roots with truth, discipline, and humility, our outward life will flourish, not as a hollow show, but as the genuine fruit of unseen strength. Hidden roots nourish the strongest trees, and hidden character sustains the strongest lives. What is done in quiet often echoes the longest, for the most lasting impact is rarely born from loud declarations or grand displays. Instead, it grows out of small, faithful acts carried out without demand for recognition. The world tends to celebrate what is seen, yet it is often the unseen that shapes destinies and alters lives. The quiet seed buried in the soil becomes a towering tree. The whispered word of kindness alters the course of a broken heart, and the prayer spoken in solitude moves unseen currents in ways no human eye can measure. That which is done in silence often carries a depth and endurance far greater than anything shouted from the rooftops. Noise fades, but quiet endures. History itself testifies to this truth. Many of the loudest voices of past generations have long been forgotten, yet the simple, hidden acts of compassion, sacrifice, and perseverance continue to bear fruit. Consider the countless mothers and fathers who raised children with love and discipline, never appearing in books or monuments, yet their influence stretches through generations. Think of the inventors, artists, and saints whose most profound work was not celebrated in their lifetime, but discovered later, echoing far beyond what they imagined. Their quiet labor, unseen at first, became a gift to ages they would never meet. Quiet has a way of refining intention. When we act without the spotlight, we act with purity. There is no audience to applaud, no recognition to inflate pride, only the act itself, born of conviction. A deed done in quiet is stripped of vanity, leaving only the substance of its truth. That is why its echo lasts. Noise seeks to impress in the moment, but quiet builds something eternal. A loud gesture may be remembered briefly, but a quiet sacrifice can shape lives for decades. We often underestimate the weight of the unseen. A word of encouragement spoken to one person in despair may ripple outward to touch hundreds of lives. A small gift given in secret may rescue a future that would have been lost. The one who chooses integrity in silence, who does what is right when no one is watching, sets in motion a chain of influence far greater than any public announcement. Quiet actions have a way of planting themselves deep in the soil of memory, and their fruit appears long after the noise of the world has moved on. There is also a divine mystery in what is done in quiet. It is as though heaven itself honors hiddenness. Many of the greatest truths were revealed not in thunder, but in whispers, not in spectacle, but in silence. God Himself often works in ways unseen, weaving together circumstances and shaping hearts quietly, patiently, and powerfully. To act in quiet is to participate in that sacred rhythm, trusting that the echo will reach farther than our own voices ever could. In a world saturated with noise, where every accomplishment begs to be displayed, it takes courage to choose quiet. But this courage is rewarded with endurance. The noise of self-promotion may gather attention for a moment, but it fades quickly, swallowed by the next distraction. What is done in quiet, however, slips past the clamor and roots itself in eternity. The echo of such deeds cannot be silenced, for they are not carried by applause, but by truth. Thus, we learn that the truest measure of a life is not in what is shouted, but in what is lived faithfully, silently, and sincerely. The quiet act of love, the hidden labor of service, the unseen choice of integrity, these do not vanish when unrecognized. They echo across time, across souls, and often into eternity itself. What is done in quiet often echoes the longest, because it is not bound to the fleeting noise of the world, but to the enduring power of truth and love.